Welcome back to the Catechism Review. Today we're going to be doing the 8th commandment, which is on page 110 of the Catechism. And we're going to just kind of go through, it goes through page 114. The memory work is, what does this mean? We should fear and love God so that we do not tell lies about our neighbor, betray him, slander him, or hurt his reputation, but defend him, speak well of him, and explain everything in the kindest way. I memorized that last phrase when I was young as put the best construction on everything. This one has explain everything in the kindest way. But that word in there that is the key to this is reputation. Remember, we talked about all of the things that are important to your neighbor because they're important to you, and you're trying to love your neighbor as yourself. And again, the law is proving to you that you really can't do it. And so it's his life, it's his body and family, it's his stuff, and now it's his reputation. The commandment is about learning to guard and protect your neighbor's reputation just as much as you guard and protect your own reputation. So as we go through here, we're going to see that a lot of this is not strictly just about telling lies. Even though the commandment says you shall not bear false testimony against your neighbor, there's a lot more to guarding and protecting somebody else's reputation than just not telling any lies. The example that we used in class was, what if there is an A student who is very proud of his grades and likes his reputation as being a smart kid, and then suddenly he gets an F on the test. And the teacher hands it back, and he looks at his grade and he can't believe it. And the person next to him who's always been jealous of the smart kid gets all A's, and the smart kid's all embarrassed, and the person next to him shouts out, "Hey everybody, look it, he got an F." Well, is that a lie? No, it's the truth. But what was the point of saying that? It was to tear down your neighbor. It was to hurt his reputation. That means it was a violation of this commandment, even though it was the truth. Because again, in that explanation, so we don't tell lies about our neighbor, we don't betray our neighbor, slander him, hurt his reputation, but defend him, speak well of him, and explain everything in the kindest way. So there's a lot of ways that we can be guilty of this really without even knowing it. This is a way that you can sin against your absent neighbor. Let's say that you are with a group of friends and somebody starts gossiping about somebody else who isn't there. Well, you might think, well, I know gossiping is against this commandment because that's really tearing down her reputation, say. So I'm not going to participate in that. So I'll just let it go. Is that keeping the commandment? No, because what your absent neighbor needed you to do is defend her. Say, wait a minute, that's not fair, or you shouldn't be saying that about her, or I don't, somehow you interject yourself to say, it's not just a question of letting it slide, let the slander, let the gossip, let the tearing down of somebody's reputation happen, but I'm just not going to participate in it, I'm going to keep my hands clean of that. You're there to guard your absent neighbor's reputation, so you have to somehow step in, somehow put an end to the gossip, not just refuse to participate in it. That's really hard. That's something that we all fail to do because you might make yourself a victim. But the goal is to love your neighbor as yourself with regard to your neighbor's reputation. And if you would want somebody standing up for you, defending your reputation, if you were being gossiped about or made fun of behind your back, then that's what you do for other people. Very, very difficult. That's why this law shows us our sin, because it just doesn't come naturally to us to care about our neighbor's reputation as much as we care about our own reputation. So question 83, why is a good reputation important? It's important so that each of us may enjoy the trust and respect of others. This is one of the ways that we get on in the world, is when people trust us, when people respect us, when people think highly of us. That really enables us to live. If people are always thinking they know something about you because of something they heard behind behind your back, then you have a difficult time just relating to people or making your way through the day. So that really hurts you as a person if your reputation is not intact. So therefore, you need your Christian brothers and sisters to defend you and speak well of you when you aren't in the room. So question 84, we don't speak harmful words about other people. That can include telling lies. Just in everyday life, it says on top of page 111, or in a court of law. Certainly in a court of law, you can never tell a lie, but just going about your day, you shouldn't be telling a lie either. Betraying your neighbor, that's the example we talked about with the kid who got an F. That's making public his secret. He was ashamed of that. He didn't like that. He didn't want that to be the thing that defined him, and yet you shouted it out to the class to tear him down. That is their private faults, their failings, their flaws. You are broadcasting them to make sure everybody knows them. Another one is rushing to judgment, assuming the worst. So maybe you see somebody who looks like they're doing something wrong, looks a little fishy. Well, what do? Do you assume that they are doing something wrong? Or do you investigate further, ask them, make sure you know what you're talking about before you jump to conclusions? Let's say you see your friend's car outside someplace your friend shouldn't be. Maybe you're not 21 and your friend's car is there at a bar late at night, and you think, what do you think about that? Do you think, my friend must have a fake ID? He's at a bar. Well, is that explaining it in the kindest way? Or could you think, somebody must have borrowed my friend's car? Or maybe he loaned it to his uncle, or whatever it is. The explanation for how you interpret what other people do should be on their side, trying to think the best of them rather than thinking of an explanation that assumes the worst about them. Because again, you're trying to build up your neighbor's reputation. Then also it says we fear and love God by speaking constructively about others. Defending your friend or your neighbor when others are speaking bad about them. And then on page 112b, drawing attention to our neighbor's good qualities and deeds. Words of praise. Hey, good job. That's a way to build people up. Edifying speech is what the New Testament wants of us, what we all fail to offer at times. As this law is a curb to our most cruel impulses to tear people down. Words can really do a lot of damage. Rumors and gossip and insults and mockery can really hurt. So the opposite of that is building people up, edifying them, saying good job, saying, you look nice, or thank you for doing that. Something like that is a way of building up your neighbor, especially regarding his reputation. And then, as we already said, seeking to understand our neighbor's actions in the most positive light rather than in the most negative light. If they are late coming into the test, do you assume that they were frantically studying because they didn't study last night, or do you assume, well, they must have gotten stopped by a train? When you explain it, you give them the benefit of the doubt to any degree possible, obviously within the bounds of reason. It's the best possible way, not the best, most miraculous way. But within the realm of reason, you explain what they do kindly in a way that leaves their reputation intact. So in our society, question 85 on the bottom of 112, well, obviously, some of these are really obvious on the bottom of the page there, but it makes the point at the top of 113, social media is a new thing, and it's one of the ways that people try to manipulate their own reputation. They put a persona out there, an image of themselves that isn't really true. People are inclined to do that. You shouldn't be doing that, but Nevertheless, it's not your job to tear everybody else down. It's not your job to go on social media and hurt somebody else's reputation. It's not your job to isolate them, to ignore them, to make sure somebody else, let's all exclude so-and-so from the group. That can hurt. That hurts people's reputations. Or sometimes you deliberately might put something in the comments that you know annoys them just to get them agitated. Don't do that. Social media especially, everything people are doing to each other's reputation is permanent. People can dig it up later, and you can really get into trouble that way. The Bible tells us to speak the truth in love. That means we don't speak falsehood, but we make sure that whatever we're saying out of love for the other person. And you can't be lying when you say that. Because I love you, I need you to know that you're an idiot. That's not the way you would say that. When you say, because I love you, you're lying. Because if you really did love that person, that's not what you would say. You might say something like, I think you might want to rethink that. I'm not sure. Maybe there's a better way of looking at it. But you're not going to say, you're just a total idiot out of love. So talk to your neighbor the way you would talk to somebody who you really, truly do love, and that will guide you in how to go about honoring this commandment in your life. Are there times when not speaking the truth may be necessary? That can be the case. Sometimes you might do more harm than good by saying something that is true. And it gives an example from Exodus on the bottom of 113, how when the midwives were allowing the Hebrew babies to be born against Pharaoh's orders, he said the boys all had to be killed. Some of the Egyptian midwives would say they would let them live. And then they would say, well, they're always born too fast before we get there. Well, they were lying, but they were lying because the order was unjust. They were trying to obey God rather than Pharaoh. They were trying to do the right thing. And very rarely is that ever the case in life where you might be called upon to lie. But the main thing is that you are always seeking to do the right thing, the loving thing, and guarding your neighbor's reputation as though it's just as important as your own reputation. And we'll continue tomorrow with the 8th and 9th commandments.